As always, Brazil are one of the favourites to the World Cup. They haven't won the trophy since 2002, and last time out on home soil, they had a late collapse at the end of the tournament in 4th place. This time, Brazil are once again heavily backed, but they'll be heading to Russia with a very different squad to the one they had 4 years ago. Let's take a look at Brazil's 2018 World Cup squad and see where each player was 4 years ago during the last tournament. Alisson Becker, Internacional. He's been linked with one of the biggest transfers ever for a goalkeeper in recent weeks, but the Brazilian stopper wanted by Liverpool was nowhere near a Champions League semi-final in 2014 or a World Cup. Alisson was just 21 years old during the last tournament and still playing in his native Brazil for Internacional, where he was competing with the legendary Dida for the number 1 spot. 4 years on and he's likely to be Brazil's number 1, and he's been linked with a £75 million move away from Roma. Edison Rio Ave. The stopper was just 20 years of age during the last World Cup, and like Alisson was not in contention for the senior squad, having played under-23s football for his country. Edison was playing his football in Portugal for Rio Ave, where he would make 16 league appearances that season and help the side finish 11th, as well as coming runners-up in the Portuguese Cup. 4 years on and he's a Premier League winner, a League Cup winner, and the most expensive goalkeeper in world football, but only in pound sterling. Casio Corinthians. Gonna be honest lads, I don't know a thing about Casio, other than that it's a brand of calculator, but my research tells me that the goalkeeper has been with Corinthians since 2012, having previously played for PSV. Casio has been in and around Brazil's squad since 2007, but didn't actually make his debut until last year, and would be third choice in Russia. Danilo Porto. Another one of Manchester City's title winners was nowhere to be seen at the 2014 World Cup, but now he's likely to be a starter for the Samba Stars due to Dani Alves' injury. 4 years ago, Danilo was just 22 years old and playing for Porto, who had given the fullback his first crack at European football, joining from Santos in 2012. The defender would spend one more season in Portugal before joining Real Madrid in 2015. Fagner Corinthians. The right back is another player who I don't know much about, but I imagine we've all seen the video of him and his family reacting to being named in the Brazil squad, and it was all very lovely. 4 years ago, Fagner returned to Brazil, having signed for Wolfsburg in 2012. He would agree along with a view to a permanent deal in early 2014, but his international prospects wouldn't pick up until 2016 when he made his debut, and he's since won 4 caps for his country. But will he add to that tally in Russia? Marcelo, Real Madrid. Finally we have a player who was in Brazil's last World Cup squad. Marcelo was Brazil's first choice left back on home soil and arrived at the tournament on the back of winning the Champions League with Real Madrid, the first of 4 European crowns. However, Marcelo's World Cup got off to a horrific start, inadvertently scoring the first goal of the tournament by putting through his own net to give Croatia the lead on the opening night. Fortunately, Marcelo's blushes would be spared and Brazil went on to win 3-1. Felipe Luis, Atletico Madrid. Maxwell was Marcelo's backup 4 years ago, so Felipe Luis had to settle for a place on the standby list, despite enjoying one of the best seasons of his career. Luis was on the back of a sensational La Liga title win under Diego Simeone, and it was nearly a double, losing in the Champions League final to rivals Real. Luis is in the squad this time though, and will be there as a European winner, having triumphed in the Europa League final against Marseille. Thiago Silva, PSG. He was the captain 4 years ago, and Thiago Silva headed into the tournament on the back of winning Ligue 1 back in Paris. Thiago Silva would perform very well during the tournament, being named in the World Cup Dream Team once it was all over, but suspension would see him miss the crucial semi-final against Germany, and Thiago Silva's Brazil side would lose by a remarkable 7-1. Miranda, Atletico Madrid. At 33 years old, this will be Miranda's first appearance at a World Cup, having failed to make the 2010 squad and only making the standby list in 2014, while Dante was given the opportunity to ruin his country's hopes and dreams. Miranda had a great season as well, winning La Liga alongside Felipe Luis. A move to Italy has obviously helped the centre-half, having joined Inter Milan in 2015. Marquinhos, PSG. Aged just 20 during the last World Cup, Marquinhos wasn't selected for the Brazilian senior side, despite already being a full international, so while the big boys were out letting down the host nation fans, Marquinhos had already won silverware, playing at the Toulon tournament with Brazil's under-20 side, where they would win the final 5-2 against France, with Marquinhos getting himself on the score sheet. Pedro Garomel, Grêmio. Right, I'm not claiming to know anything about the quality of the Brazilian top flight, but did Pedro Garomel win some sort of raffle to make it into the World Cup squad? At 32 years of age, he has just 2 caps to his name and only made his debut last year, while someone like David Luiz is sat at home, unable to win a place on the plane. Pedro had been playing in Europe before the 2014 World Cup for the likes of Cologne and Mallorca, but in late 2013 he returned to Brazil with Grêmio and has been there ever since. Good luck to him. Casemiro, Real Madrid. A 22-year-old at the time, Casemiro had already made his Brazilian debut, with that honour coming when he was back aged 19. But the holding midfielder would not feature at the 2014 World Cup. Casemiro had only recently become a Real Madrid player, signing for Los Blancos a year earlier. Since then he's had a loan spell at Porto and gone on to win all there is to win at club level, and he'll now get the chance to add a World Cup to his trophy cabinet. Fernandinho, Manchester City. No change for Fernandinho over the past 4 years. In 2014, he headed to the World Cup having won the Premier League and League Cup with Manchester City, and in 2018 he's done exactly the same, with exactly the same numbers of hairs on his head. At the Brazilian World Cup, Fernandinho appeared sporadically, and this is likely to be his final World Cup, as he'll be the grand old age of 37 during the next tournament. Paulinho, Tottenham. The midfielder was a prominent figure in Brazil's 2014 World Cup squad, playing in every game except for the triumph over Chile in the first knockout round. Paulinho came into the tournament on the back of 6 Premier League goals for Spurs, but the following season will be less prominent, with Paulinho barely featuring and inevitably moving to China. 4 years on, and Paulinho is somehow back at a World Cup, and he's there as a Barcelona player. Crackers. Fred, Shakhtar Donetsk. Yes, there was a Fred at the last World Cup for Brazil, but not this Fred. That Fred was shocking in front of goal and looked more suited to serving kebabs on a Friday night. Anyway, back to Shakhtar's Fred, who had just completed his first season in Ukraine and did not earn a place in Brazil's World Cup squad. 4 years on, he's won 3 Ukrainian Premier Leagues and he's now going to a World Cup and could be going there as a Manchester United player. It can't all be good news though, can it? Renato Augusto, Corinthians. The midfielder was 26 years old during the last World Cup, and despite having previously played for Bayer Leverkusen and now lining up for one of Brazil's top teams, found himself in international purgatory, not appearing for his country between 2011 and 2015. Now aged 30, he'll be there in Russia, proving a move to China can be good for your career, I suppose. Philippe Coutinho, Liverpool. A key player in 2018, but nowhere to be seen 4 years ago, even Philippe Coutinho couldn't get in Brazil's last World Cup squad. The attacking midfielder was on the back of a stunning season with Liverpool, where under Brendan Rodgers they very nearly won the Premier League, only to be pipped at the post by Manchester City. Ever since Brazil's failure in 2014, Coutinho has been somewhat of a prominent figure in the national team setup, and now as a Barcelona player, he's one of Brazil's top stars alongside Neymar. Willian, Chelsea. The Afro-donning winger was in the 2014 World Cup squad, having just completed his first season for Chelsea following his £30 million move from Anzi Makachkala. Willian wouldn't start a single game at the last World Cup, being restricted to appearances off the bench, one of which nearly ended in disaster for the Chelsea midfielder, missing his penalty in the shootout against Chile. Fortunately for Willian, Brazil would prevail, and their exit against Germany couldn't really be blamed on him. Douglas Costa, Shakhtar Donetsk. Just like Coutinho, Douglas Costa would come into Brazil contention after the 2014 World Cup, having failed to get a call-up for the tournament. Along with teammate Fred, Costa had just won the Ukrainian Premier League, recording 9 assists on the way to the title. His debut for Brazil would eventually come in November 2014, and he since played for Bayern Munich and now Juventus, where the spotlight shines much brighter on the exciting wide player. Tyson, Shakhtar Donetsk. Our third and final player who was with Shakhtar Donetsk 4 years ago, but things could have been very different for Tyson, who previously admitted he would consider representing Ukraine at an international level. Fortunately for him, that hasn't happened and he's off to the World Cup, still as a Shakhtar player. That must have been hard to imagine 4 years ago, back when he just scored once in 19 league games for the club. That's form that wouldn't even got him in the Ukraine team. Roberto Firmino, Hoffenheim. It's another player who hooked up with the Brazil team after their World Cup failures, as the Stamper Stars went in search of a new identity following a crushing defeat to Germany. Before the World Cup, Firmino could have been aggrieved not to have been selected himself, after scoring 16 Bundesliga goals for Hoffenheim, which to this day is his best ever tally in a league, managing only 15 for Liverpool this season. However, he scored 27 times in all competitions this year for the Reds, so heads to his first World Cup in fine form. Neymar, Barcelona. 4 years ago, all of Brazil's World Cup hopes were pinned on the shoulders of a 22-year-old Neymar, and he did all he could to keep those hopes alive until his body gave up on him. Brazil's number 10 scored 4 goals at his first ever World Cup, and was in sublime form until he was struck down with injury against Colombia, where a name the back saw him suffer a very serious back injury that ended his tournament. This time he's been injured before the World Cup, and is in a race to be fit for Brazil's opening game against Switzerland on June 17th. Gabriel Jesus, Palmeiras. Hands up if you knew who Gabriel Jesus was in 2014. Yep, nobody. But ahead of the 2018 World Cup, Jesus has burst onto the scene after a stunning 18 months at Manchester City, where he scored 24 goals in 53 games, making him one of the most exciting young players at this year's tournament. However, 4 years ago, Jesus hadn't even made a senior debut at club level, and he was part of Palmeiras' youth side at the age of 17, where he was banging them in, scoring 37 goals in 22 games for them in the Under-17 State Championship. Now a Brazil superstar, could he win the Golden Boot in Russia? So that's where Brazil's World Cup squad was 4 years ago during the last tournament. Let us know who you'd like us to look at next in the comments below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.